Welcome to Plugged Inland. I'm Roger Bowman. On this episode, we're pleased to highlight the work of a renowned poet who lives here in the Inland Empire, Juan Felipe Herrera. Just last year, Juan was appointed to Poet Laureate of California. He's also a professor at the UC Riverside College here in the Inland Empire. Juan talked to us about how he embarked on this amazing journey that led to the rarest of things, success as a poet. His latest quest is to raise awareness of the terrible consequences of school bullying and to promote art as an alternative outlet for these kids. Let's peek in as he presented to the students of Towngate Elementary in Moreno Valley.
One time in high school, one of my friends, Tommy Landale, said, "Oh, I'm going to be a writer." I said, "A what? A writer? What's a writer?" This is in high school. But I had been writing since middle school, and my teachers would give me a little bunch of words, give us a bunch of words, new words, and said, "Write a story with these words." And I said, "Oh, this is interesting. Let me do this." And I used to really love doing that, but I didn't know I loved it. I just enjoyed it, but I didn't know I loved it. And that was part of a path I was already on, and I didn't even know it. So I never really knew, I think until the late 60s. But even then it was more of a public speaking, poetry style world that I decided to embark on. I decided to embark on being a presenter, a speaker, and a performer when I was in 7th grade, because I never spoke. I was afraid to speak, and I would see others speaking, and I would just admire them. How do they do it? So I said, I'm just really scared. That's it. I'm going to stop being scared, and I want to be a speaker. And the only thing I could come up with was to join the choir. I said, if I join the choir, that's going to get me on the road. So I started a choir in 8th grade through 12th grade. But I was caught up in my self-cultivation project, and I didn't know about writing, even though I would do very well. But it was just something I did in school. But eventually I was all I did, and it became my life. And maybe I was aware of it when I was 40. I never really told them they would see me on TV on occasion, and my uncle would see me on TV and say, "What are you talking about, all that political stuff?" But no, I never really shared it with them. I was like a writer in the public world, and at home I was Juanito, the son, and their son. And my father had passed away when I was 16. And they were storytellers, and my mother was a singer, and they encouraged me to pick up the guitar. So I became like a folk singer in high school, like we all did in those years. And a writer and songwriter and poet all wrapped up in one, like Bob Dylan, one of my early heroes back then. And I would sing at home, and I would play my guitar at home, and my mom would see me hunched over the desk writing my life away. But I never told her, here's a poem I'm going to read for you. It was kind of one of those things until very late, very, 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 very late, when my mother was dying. And I decided to read her a poem. And she said, "Shut up." Just shut up. Let me, that way kind of, I know all this about you already. So you know what? I'm somewhere else right now. I'm moving in another direction. But at the time it was kind of an anxious attempt to share the poems with her. However, she already knew about all of it. And she had set me off in that path many decades before. Fondest dream, what I would like to see these children do, is what they did today. It's already been done. They showed how excited they are about this end bullying project. They used their voices in a very joyful, positive way. They came up to the front, and they came up with 2 projects already, the End Bullying Club and the End Bullying Carnival. I never would have thought of a carnival. The club really wouldn't have come to mind. I was thinking more like an assembly presentation. So that's already in motion. So the dream has come true. My dream has come true already. And I know they're going to take off. When they get on that bus, they're going to come up with 1,000 things. and they're going to go back to school and do things. But most of all, it's this new awareness, or this reinforced positive awareness that I already saw take place. And my dream is for them to continue that and share it with others, share it at home, and become the first group, the first school, the first teams in all of California to begin the I Promise Joanna project. That's the dream, and they're the first ones, and they already kicked it off. So the dream is already in reality. This poem is called Joanna Ramos, I Promise. I dedicate this poem to all the children of California, to all the students, to all the families, and to Joanna Ramos and her family, and all of our students. You don't know her. She was 10, 5th grade, Long Beach, or here, after school, when all the fights happened. Dark brown hair and eyes made of light. One fight, 2 girls, 1 lived. 1 died. 1 clot in the brain. 1, then 2 times during surgery. Wake up! Joanna, wake up! Closed her eyes. Closed her eyes. Gone now. Little Joanna, gone. Who started it? Who ended it? Where was I? Where were you? Joanna, I promise. I promise it won't happen again.
Here to discuss that poem and more is Juan Felipe Herrera. Thank you for being here, Juan.
Well, thank you for inviting me. This is great.
You know, in that video, we started with the happy note of how you ascended to the success level that you have now, how you found that passion and love, and then we ended on that somber poem about Joanna. So I'm going to start there.
Okay.
Who is Joanna?
Well, Joanna is Joanna Ramos, an 11-year-old girl from Long Beach that got caught up in a fight at school or after school and got punched really hard and felt very sick, went home and told her mother, you know, Mom, I need to take a break. I need to rest in my room. So she went to her room, she lay down, and she didn't wake up. And she died at the hospital.
From a schoolyard fight.
From a schoolyard fight. And she died, and I saw her image on the TV, on the screen, and I looked at her, that photograph, and she was full of life, and she was smiling and beaming, 5th grade, 11-year-old student. And I said, wait a minute, that's it. I drew a line, and I said, I have to do something. That's Joanna Ramos. So now we have the I Promise Joanna project to end bullying in 5th grade and in all ages and all grades.
So, I Promise Joanna, that sounds like such a tribute to her. The poem is about her, but really the project goes beyond her to talk about what bullying is and how it can impact people, and you're going to such a young age.
That's an important thing, to go to a young age, and it's an important thing to recognize someone who has died at a young age. You know, it's a real thing. It's not an idea. It's something real. A young life was lost. Many young lives have been lost, and we can do something about it. As the children can do something about it because they're the ones involved in all this. They're in that ocean of bullying, whether they like it or not, and as well as community and teachers and all of us.
It feels like we've all dealt with some level of bullying during our school years, and it's perhaps a natural state of human endeavor. I mean, one we may never be able to get rid of, but certainly I think really since 1999, the Columbine shooting, we've really had a focus on this idea of just how impactful bullying in the school place can be. Whether or not that actual incident was related to those two being bullied, because there's a lot of controversy on that. Latest 2009 USA Today said no, they weren't bullied, they were the bullies. But either way, that it focused the nation's attention on it. I'm just going to take a moment and read some of the most prominent names just in the past few months.
Yes.
Rita Parsons hanged herself just in April, 14-year-old. Amanda Green hanged herself in March, left a note to her mom that said, "It's bullying that killed me, please get justice." Audrey Pott hanged herself just last September. Amanda Todd hanged herself in October. She had been stalked by a cyber bully that when people saw the cyber post, they then taunted her in the school as well. Faux Prince hanged herself in 2010, 15 years old. Carl Walker Hoover hanged himself in 2009, age 11. Duke University study, and I know you're familiar with most of these, Duke University study linked bullying in the school to depression later on, and the statistics are alarming. But these are cases where getting to these kids and saying what you're doing isn't just a fun way to make yourself feel better, it has real impact. So you're doing more than just writing a poem. You're actually going into those schools. Tell us about that.
Yes, we're going into schools to talk about this, and we're encouraging students to make a promise to Joanna to stop being a bully and to end bullying in their own way, in their own lives, in whatever fashion they want to, and to work with their friends in the classroom, with their teacher, with their parents, and to come up with something. Whether it's a poetry carnival, as a end bullying carnival, one of our students in Towngate Elementary came up with that, a small group came up with that, or whatever they can do, a project, or just standing up in front of the classroom and say, this is what happened to me, and this is how I felt, and I don't want to feel this way anymore. I don't want to do this anymore to someone else, and I want to find out how to stop.
Wow.
And I want to make a promise to do that.
Are the kids willing to do that? Are they willing to stand up and say, I'm the subject of bullying and I don't want to be bullied anymore?
You know, they're willing to do that. Young people, students in our classrooms are full of excitement, full of energy, full of creativity, full of tenderness. We need to come to them and provide a bridge, provide a fountain, provide a way, ideas, modeling, words, statements, art to make that happen. But they're ready to go. They like to read, they like to write. They also like to stand back at the back of the room, but when we stand forward and come to them, then they come to us too.
So I'm going to say I've not experienced much poetry in my life beyond song and lyrics for songs, but not that I've written them, but I've listened, so that makes me an armchair expert, I guess. But I understand poetry for a lot of people is kind of cathartic. It purges, it makes you feel better. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask you, is this poetry, is it to help the reader because they've written this poetry they want others to read, or is it to help them?
Well, poetry is almost everything, to tell you the truth. It's for the reader. It can be in a book, it can be in a comic book, it's in a song, it's our mother's sayings, our grandmother's proverbs. It's in newspapers. It's in big old books that are hard to read, and you got to check them out and pay $100 to get them. But it's actually everywhere. Most of all, it's in every community across California. And all we have to do is let it happen. Say your inner thoughts. Let your real self come out. Express yourself, and that's poetry. And then we can start writing it if you want to, or we can draw it if you want to, or we could sing it if you want to. We can make a chorus of poetry. So it's very, very flexible, very malleable. It's like a tortilla. You can roll it up and chew it and enjoy it.
So Juan, let me ask, what is the benefit of poetry in our society from a societal point of view? Why do we want to keep poetry around?
Because the heart of poetry is kindness. It's not fancy gizmos. It's not something that you have to purchase and it's going to cost a lot of money. It's right inside of you. And at the heart of it is kindness. At the heart of it is this kind of very free spirit. At the heart of it is an ability to touch somebody's heart in 3 seconds flat and perhaps change their life that quickly.
Wow.
That's the beauty of it.
That was so well put. I could almost see you as an advocate for poetry.
Yes.
Which is our very obvious segue to the other topic.
Yes.
you are a poet laureate.
Yes.
Now that word sounds impressive, but I have to admit to everybody, I really didn't know what that meant. It sounded to me like you'd won an award, you're a renowned poet, kind of like you won an Emmy for poetry, and that there would be many of you all over Southern California. But it turns out that's not the case. It's even more prestigious than that. Tell me, what is a poet laureate?
Well, a poet laureate is, in this case, I've been appointed by Governor Brown and the people of California and the California Arts Council and some really good people that sat at the appointment desk in the governor's office and gave me a call and went through all my background and all that. So that's part of it. And the laureate, of course, are the laurels of the old Greek laurels that
Sure.
are put on our heads, or we could put cilantro if we want to. And but it's a growing thing. It literally is a growing thing, and it really is. In California, we have the out loud poetry competitions in every county where high school students memorize a poem, present it, and become champions, and then compete statewide and compete nationally. And we have a new laureate coming up in Salinas. We had a youth laureate in Oakland and a new laureate in San Mateo. And LA just got a laureate in Riverside.
I'm gonna interrupt you, Juan, only because
I got a list.
yes, but you've been too humble. So let me
okay.
toot the horn for you a little bit.
Okay.
And that is that a laureate is a representative for geography,
Yeah.
and you represent California. There's only one. You were appointed by Governor Brown. You were sworn in by Governor Brown
Yes.
as California's only poet laureate. You represent and advocate for poetry inside the state of California. Most states have them. There's a few states that don't. And the U.S. has one that represents overall U.S. But you're in a club of under 50 people so recognized.
I can't say no. You're right. I'm very grateful to Governor Brown and the people of California. And it's unbelievable to be in this position. I began as a child of farm workers in the San Joaquin Valley and learning English right on first grade I hit the floor running, learning English. And that's how it happened. And all of a sudden here I am. And I thank everyone for this.
So, you talked about that. You hit the floor running, learning English. You're first generation American? Yes. And you talk about it, oh my gosh, I have it somewhere here. In your works, a description of the various works that you do is the Chicano. What is it? It's State of Chicano Poetry. What is State of Chicano Poetry?
That's a good way to put it. Chicano poetry is a poetry of Mexicanos, Mexicans in the United States, first generation like myself, or just Mexicans in the United States. It's kind of like a cool word to say, yes, I'm a Mexicano in the United States, I'm a Chicano. Of course, it comes from many other sources. It's almost like an invented word, a word that we have given ourselves to. And it's a word that we like. But there are many words. There's Latino, there's Hispanic, there's Chicano, Mexican-American, Mexicano, Mexican, and American. And they all go together. Family.
I would love to say that I had that gift of creative writing there, but I didn't. I got that from your bio. A bio written about you, obviously used that. You've done a lot of works before getting appointed. This appointment to Poet Laureate is fairly recent, 2012.
Yes.
The perfect time. You were telling how you had learned of Joanna. You were impacted by seeing her bright face on the news. And then wasn't it shortly after that you were appointed?
It was in the same month, yes. Joanna, I believe this incident, her passing away was in early March. And on the 22nd of March, I received a call from the governor's office that I was appointed. And that's how it happened, all in the same time almost. And so it's very, very close to my heart. Joanna's, what happened to Joanna. And I don't want it to happen to any more, and I don't want young people to suffer from this, and their families, and our communities at large. It's a very big thing. It's very, very painful, and let's put poetry there. Let's use poetry and the arts and our voices and ourselves to end that. That's the idea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It feels almost inspired that you would, in the same month as you felt that urge, that calling really to do something about it, get that appointment, because now you kind of have a platform.
Yes, I do.
You had credibility. You may you may have been in those fields in Salinas, but your education, just give me the brief background of your education.
Oh, I went to UCLA through the EOP program in 1967, and then I went to Stanford, and then I went to University of Iowa in creative writing.
University of Iowa, they're actually renowned for their creative writing school, aren't they?
That's right.
Yes, my mother actually has published 3 novels. Quick shout out, With Full Malice, 10 Times Guilty, and Beyond the Quiet. She actually went to University of Iowa creative writing program. So there you go, Mom.
Good going.
Yeah, so you got a great education, and then you went on and started teaching at a university, what we think of as the best of the UC system right here, UC Riverside.
It is. It's a beautiful university, beautiful students, beautiful department, creative writing, and faculty, fabulous. I just love the University of Riverside, California Riverside. It's done so much for me, and I learned so much from my students, and they're the best writers in a long ways. They're great.
Okay, I'm going to take just a moment and remind our viewers, this is actually a live show, so you are free to call or tweet or email the show and ask Juan about anything from poetry and the arts to bullying to whatever is on your mind. And if it's anywhere in the realm of appropriateness, we'll talk about it on the air. You can ask Juan directly. So be sure to call, tweet, or email. And let me find out, you teach at UCR, you teach creative writing and the arts.
Yes.
But you also have a lot of your own personal works that you've done, a lot of books, a lot of works, that $100 big check out the library book that you were talking about, you've contributed to those.
I have. But at the university, you don't have to pay. Yes, I have. You know, I write for children. I have children's books, picture books, bilingual ones. I have young adult novels and poetry collections and stories and anything in between. I wrote a musical last year in November, another project I did for the Laureate project, Stars of Juarez, about 2 women in the 30s in Juarez, Mexico, El Paso, and Riverside. And I met them in their 90s, in their mid-90s, and they were stars in the 30s, and no one really knows about them. So I took it upon
myself. And by mid-90s, I just realized you didn't mean the years mid-90s,
no,
you mean their age was
mid-90s.
mid-90s.
Yeah, 96, 97 years old. And I interviewed them. I knew they had a lot to say, and they were fabulous and magnificent and unknown. So I took it upon myself to make them known and tell their story, and I put together a musical to do that.
Juan, I'd like to know their health secrets.
That's right. Happiness and joy and family.
Okay, so we have a question indeed. An email from Lynn of Calamasa. My daughter, 13, was recently bullied by several kids in the park. I told her next time run to an adult, but she said the girls wouldn't let her leave. What should she do if there's the next time? I'm afraid to let her go anywhere, especially the park now.
Well, you know, letting our children walk home and go to school is great. But it's come to a point where we have to find ways of getting them to school and getting them back from school. And if it's a particular case like this, perhaps it'd be nice to find a way to get them outside of walking. Maybe they can get picked up or take a bus, or another parent that you know pick them up until this thing cools down. Or maybe not go through that park, you know.
In this case, I do know from personal experience.
Yeah.
I mean, I've said on the air, there's interstitials that run on KVCR that talk about it.
Yeah.
I was bullied in my high school years, such that by the time it reached later high school, I didn't want to go to school. I skipped school. They had a zero tolerance policy and kicked me out.
Yes.
So I dropped out of high school because of bullying, really because I just wasn't strong enough at the time to be able to face it. And I've said it took me 20 years to climb out of that mess. Now, I had a great career in between. I did all kinds of things in the Silicon Valley, started my own companies, did all sorts of things, kind of following that Bill Gates, Steve Jobs idea that you can drop out and still be successful.
Yes.
I learned different. When the chips are down, you really have to rely back on that education, which is why I was proud that we were doing the dropout program that we did here this last series,
yes.
and why I'm glad that we're talking about school bullying, the thing that affected me.
Yes, you know, bullying does that. In my case, you know, I was bullied first grade straight off, and so I shut myself down. I didn't speak anymore because I spoke in Spanish, and I didn't know English. So then I stopped speaking all the way through 6th grade, 7th grade. And that's when I came to the point, like yourself, I got to do something about this. And I got in choir. I just enrolled myself in choir. I didn't want to do that, but I knew that in choir, I was going to be able to pull out my voice again and start getting back on track. But I shut myself down for 6 years. So that's what bullying does. It kind of kicks us out of our rhythm, and we have this big detour all of a sudden. We're going backwards or sideways, and we have to make that turn, and many don't make that turn. So we are here to make sure they don't have to deal with that and keep on moving and keep on growing.
You know, I know for this awareness project that you're doing, you reached out to others, and one of them that you sought out was the contributions of a student at UC Riverside named David Campos. As a bullying victim himself, he felt a personal aspect to the quest to use the arts as a way to resolve conflict. At the premiere of the I Promise Joanna program, David was on hand to help teach students how to turn their promises of anti-bullying into words and into art. Let's hear from David.
He came, he tapped me. We were involved in a lot of workshops and like playing around, and I guess he saw maybe a bit of enthusiasm for poetry, for art, for being involved with the community. And having read some of my work where I too have been a victim of bullying when I was in school, he thought it would be a good fit for this project. And as soon as he proposed it to me, I was really ecstatic. I was really excited to be a part of it because it was something that was going to go statewide and that we were going to start here. And that the basis was poetry, and I love poetry. And poetry is all kinds of things. It could be art, it could be words, it could be whatever. And I really wanted an opportunity to be a part of it. So when he asked me, I said yes. And I was, heck yes. We went over how to peacefully and safely resolve conflict. Because all bullying leads to some kind of conflict. So we wanted to stop it before it becomes a problem. Or if it is already a problem, we want to create solutions where the kids themselves have the tools they need in order to solve them. I think one of my favorite was just remember to respect each other. And I think respect was something that everybody in all the groups kind of held on to, respect as a word. They said, I will never bully again. And I think that was really cool to see that you know, someone actually acknowledging that they have done it in the past and that they won't do it in the future. We went through around and asked every one of them what they each thought would be a good solution or their good promise to Joanna. And each of them had something very cool to say, very unique to say, from playing sports to telling an adult. And those examples, I really liked the opportunity. And you know, when I was in school, it wasn't there. No one was telling us to stop bullying. So to have these kids say, yeah, we acknowledge that bullying exists and we want to stop it is pretty amazing. But I hope it just spreads like across the country. I hope people pick up on this, I promise, because promise is such a strong word. And maybe it's not a promise to Joanna, but it's a promise to themselves and a promise to their family, to their friends and their loved ones, how they won't participate in bullying, or if they see something, they will stop it and prevent it from happening again.
And we're back with California Poet Laureate Juan Felipe Herrera. Now, as our regular viewers know, in many of our episodes, when we break to a video at the midpoint, we return with that featured guest in our studio. Well, that was our intent this evening, but David wasn't feeling his best today. And so our staff wants to express our hopes that you, David, are getting better soon. But that gives us more time to explore what it means to be a laureate with Juan. So let me ask, we were talking about bullying. We have a caller, actually, that is going to ask a question about that. Maggie, if you're ready, you're on the air. What would you like to ask? Maggie, you there?
Yes.
What's your question or comment?
No, my comment is that even the teachers that are supposed to be the professionals, you know, the adults, they also bully the children.
Do you have a personal example? Okay, we're going to go ahead and talk about that a little bit. I think that she elaborated a little bit more to the screener and didn't want to elaborate on the air, and I wish that weren't the case, but some people freeze up. I hope she calls back and can come through with it. Let me ask you, encourage kids to do these poems about bullying and they feel better, and then a parent reads it. Should a parent panic when a child writes a poem that says, I'm being bullied and I hate it?
No, panic is not a good thing, and it's no. As a matter of fact, it's good. We want to listen to our children, and we want to listen to everything they're going through. It's good to listen to the good stories and how well they feel, and they ate their lunch and everything went fine. But sometimes things don't go so well, and we want to listen to that and not react. Of course, our parents listen, but to react is the question. We need to kind of relax and let them say what they want to say, because if we get worried or we panic, then the child will panic and stop. And we won't know. We will not find out what's going on, and therefore we won't know what to do about it or in what condition our child is in. We won't be able to gauge and feel where they're coming from. That's what we want to do.
Then how, as parents, do we encourage them?
We want to confide in them. We want to show them our cariño, our good-heartedness, our glad-heartedness, and say good words to them. Things like Juanito or Juanita or Johnny or Justin or Brittany, I really believe in you. You have a beautiful voice. I appreciate you. Just those words. I know they sound like postcards, but just those words, that child will go to school glowing like a sun, like a solar system, and therefore feel better throughout the whole day. If we just brush them off, and I understand we're all busy, then they'll feel rushed off and they'll go to school nervous, and things can happen when you're off balance.
Well, the teachers can take care of that, right?
They can take care of that, but for 50, 60 students, 3 times a day or 4 times a day, it's a tough thing to do, or 40 students or 30, 20 students, it's hard to do. So today perhaps there's more for the parents to do than yesterday.
So Juan, let's break out to another call.
Okay.
D from Manhattan Beach. I hope you're listening to the telephone and not to your TV so we can get your reaction right away. What's your question?
Yes, hi. I'm a teacher, and I work all day long to keep the kids feeling good about themselves. But I'm really wanting to know from our Poet Laureate, when talking to the children, can they express what their motivation is in doing the bullying? Because I'm always shocked that sometimes it's the very nice kids that I had no idea would do something like this are some of the meanest. And I just wondered if he was able to kind of get down with the kids and find out, why? Why would you want to do this?
Good question, Dee. Thank you.
Well, there's a lot of things that she's saying, that you're saying. There's not knowing where the students are coming from, and finding out that they really got this anger going inside of them that to us feels mean, and then how they can express themselves. So that's a lot. I can see that this teacher and most of our teachers, if not all of them, have a lot to deal with in this particular area, the area of anger, and coming to school without food, no breakfast, or being homeless students, or being in a situation at home where it's very difficult, or being away from home, living with another family member and not being with their parents, or one parent, or no parents. So when the child comes to class, they don't feel like they don't want to be there, or they have a lot of anger. So we have to provide opportunity. Sometimes they're just once again, we don't want to react to them negatively. And number 2, we want to kind of play with words. Also, we need to lighten it up. We go, okay, let's put some words up on the board. How does everybody feel? Of course, it's going to be, I feel terrible, I feel angry, I'm going to hit somebody in the nose. Well, okay, let's put that on the board. At least it's not on somebody's face or somebody's nose. Put it on the board. It's chalk. It's a dry erase board, whatever it is. Put it there, and we deflect it. We deflect it from somebody's fist, or somebody's getting punched in the hall. If we can put the word that we're feeling with anger on a board or on a piece of paper, we knocked out 75% of its energy. And if we talk about it, we'll knock out another 10% of its energy. And if we get into a small group and share our story, we'll basically take care of it. So when we walk out of that classroom, we're going to be feeling better for the next part of the day. Tomorrow we'll have to start over. But at least we have a start. So one thing is to let those students express themselves. But if you have 40 students or 30 students, that's too much to handle for a teacher. So words on paper, words on boards, and then start cooling down. But then now we know what's going on, and maybe the teachers can come up with ways to work in small groups, and then get it out of the body, put it on paper, turn it into a song a little later, and turn it into a play a little later. You can always graduate how you express this, but start with the board, or start just by listening and then take it forward.
You've highlighted something. I'm going to ask you in a moment.
Okay.
First, though, we have an email or a comment in this case from Dave of Grand Terrace. I've decided to put my child in a karate class to learn to defend himself. I believe in the, I don't get that. Fonzie, okay. Dave, call. Tell us about that. I don't know what that is. I believe in the Fonzie mentality. Oh, Fonzie of Happy Days, of course.
Oh, Fonzie.
That if you're tough enough, kids won't bother you.
Well, you know,
what do you think? Should they toughen themselves up as an anti-bullying method?
You know, I think the idea of karate is a good idea because it teaches you, of course, the idea is that they're going to defend themselves. But inside the karate and the world of martial arts is the idea of concentration, the idea of discipline, and the idea of breathing, and the idea of balance. So if you can focus when you're going to school as a child and as a parent, things get a little bit better. And if you have, if you notice you're getting out of balance, you're aware of it. Things get a little bit better. And if you're breathing and not holding everything in and you're kind of relaxed, things get a little bit better. But the actual moves and defending yourself, well, you know, sometimes it comes to that. But we want to talk about the core, which is balance, breathing, and focusing.
You know, Dave, in that email, brought up this idea that there's really two aspects to being bullied. One is the physical, where, you know, we all think of getting slapped in the back of the head or getting your lunch ripped out of your hand or something even more violent, and obviously that's what somebody would take martial arts to be able to defend against.
Yes.
But I think the most impactful bullying is the taunting, verbal. One of the most destructive forces is ostracization.
Yes.
If I've been able to say that correctly. It's the isolation from
me.
others. So
Yes.
what you're talking about, circles, putting words on a board, the breathing, is really making it so that those words don't have an impact. If they don't impact you, bullying has no effect.
That's true. That's true. They don't impact us. And we do want to breathe and we do want to laugh. Right. You know, teachers are so busy. They got to deal with these lessons and they got to deal with these objectives and the things they have to teach and books and readings. So they're kind of crushed. And the students have to meet those requirements and they're crushed. So it's a lot of tension. And it's good to provide an open space. Find a way to provide an open space, maybe just at least 5 minutes of just sitting still or stretching. I do a lot of stretching in my class. I go, okay, we're going to do plankton piano, we're going to do horizon plankton, and we're going to do tai chi tortillas, you know. And
I like the tortilla metaphors.
I do that because I know the students are going to relax. I know they're coming in, they're commuting, they're driving from LA, Moreno Valley, you name it. They forgot to eat, and they're taking 3,000 classes. So I want them relaxed, and I want them laughing a little bit. And then I can get into the creative writing with them. And then they can do it too. So we have to try things differently. Poetry is another word for doing things differently. And bullying is when we kind of start getting stuck in this very narrow world of being cool, of being tough, of being this false person that we really are not. And we need to kind of chip away at that and help each other relax, open up, and believe it or not, be able to create a round circle with our arms and embrace ourselves and embrace others. But otherwise, we got this thing like this. See, this tightens us up, and we want to shoot little rockets with our hands. You know, we want to open up and embrace.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds silly, and I know it sounds impossible given today's violence in our schools, which is very real. But we cannot shy away from it. We have to step forward and find ways to do it.
Okay, we have another question. This one from Cathedral City. I'm looking forward to it.
Yay.
Patrick, you're on the air. What's your question?
Oh, hi. I have a statement first. I wanted to give you an incident that happened to me when I was a young man in high school, and I was involved in a large group of people out in front of the school, and there was some harassing and picking on some handicapped kids. It was quite a number of years ago, and it was the first time these handicapped kids were integrated into the school. And one boy, one high school student, stood up to the bullies and interjected himself. And there must have been 300 students out there. And the fact that he did that, although there wasn't any serious encounters, but he backed the people down. And honestly, over the years, I ran into many people that were at that incident, and everybody talks about how that one fellow standing up for those being abused changed their lives. I just wanted to share that with you.
And Patrick, that was not you.
Oh.
But it did, I imagine, had an impact and possibly as, I would imagine, guided your thinking from then on.
Well, it was someone stood out and came out of the crowd, and it changed everyone's position. Not that everyone was bullying, but they were all observing it and just letting it go on.
Yeah, passivity.
And that changed the whole dynamics.
Patrick, great comment. Thank you. You know, that does bring up this idea that if you watch bullying and you don't do anything about it, you're kind of a passive encourager of it.
That's true, you know, and this is more, it's easier these days than in the past because we have so much technology that just is kind of passive technology. It doesn't really require much of us other than using our fingertips at best. So we have to kind of break away and start interacting as human beings with each other, having conversations. Conversation is the antidote that starts dissolving bullying culture. Conversation. Because bullying is not conversation. It's calling names and it's pushing and it's ostracizing, like you said. It's turning away. We have to turn towards each other and speak sincerely. Sincerity is harder than being cool. Sincerity is harder it's tougher than being cool. So if you can be sincere, you're more cool than being a bully because you're really being who you are.
It's a shame that, you know, everybody growing up feels insecurities.
Yes.
Those kids that kind of have it together at whatever age are thrown in with kids their own age that may be developing at a different rate or may have other issues they're dealing with. And they make themselves feel better by putting other people down.
Yes.
But just shortly before that, a year or two before, they were smaller, less developed, less mature themselves. I wish there was a way to break that cycle of using other people to make yourself feel better.
Yeah, that's difficult. You know, that's difficult. Our schools are so big these days. You know, there's thousands in high school. High schools with thousands of students in them, middle schools with thousands of of students.
Which
in
I'm going to
them.
interject. It isn't necessarily a terrible thing. You get great economies of scale. You get beautiful stadiums and better athletic programs, and you know. But there is the downside that I'm sure you were leading to.
Well, it turns into a downside. That is that students form groups. There's always grouping, but in a very big scope of a lot of people, you're naturally going to form a group. And then all of a sudden, there's one group against another group. And the groups are not the bad thing. It's finding ways for those groups to communicate and to interact with each other. The schools are doing things, the teachers are doing things, but we all have to do things for the school, in and outside of it.
In the classic jocks versus nerds, I think the only thing that saved the nerds is the fact that technology grew up, and now if you're a nerd, you're king.
I think you're right. I think what saved me as a nerd was that, you know, I lived in downtowns. After a while, I started living in downtowns where nobody lived except me, and a laundry, and a little mom and pop store on the corner, Bradley's Burgers and bus stops. There were no friends. I didn't have any friends or young people, so I didn't have any people to band up with. So I lived literally in libraries. That's why that was my entertainment center. We didn't have big TVs.
You lived in a library?
I lived in the downtown San Diego library, where I lived in used bookstores, or at the Greyhound station. Where
And you were telling me now you live in airports.
I also live. So now I live in airports. It's like a depot. It's like the depot of the 50s when I grew up as a kid. That's a whole other thing.
Okay, I'm going to jump out to another call. We have a call. Karen from Palm Desert, you're on the air. What's your question?
Well, I was just wondering, you were talking about 5 minutes for whatever in a classroom. How about 5 minutes where you talk about being kind to all the children in the classroom and really, putting your kindness out to those who might not be so popular?
Perfect. That's perfect. You see, that's difficult to do, but that's what we got to do, is put our kindness out to those that are not so popular and to those that are popular. But she's totally right.
And Juan, are you saying it's difficult to be kind, or are you saying it's difficult as an educator to say, let's as a class take 5 minutes, not teach to the test for these 5 minutes, but instead talk about the interpersonal dynamics of kids, of growing up?
You're right. Both are right. It's difficult to be kind in a world that's not kind most of the time, and it's difficult to be kind in a classroom for 5 minutes when the teacher needs to do other things. So that's very generous, because then the teacher has to catch up. But we need to do things like this, is just take that time, squeeze those 5 minutes, and say something true. The teacher can say, I want to tell you my story. I can talk about kindness over here in the abstract, but let me tell you my story. Whenever it's coming from me or from our experience, then the students feel that.
Yeah.
They naturally feel that, and we kind of disarm them. They start to listen. The kind of listening we always wanted starts to happen. And even if it doesn't happen, we have to do that. And so she's correct.
I liked college. And it's less personal, I think, than high school.
Yes.
You go in anonymously. There's no such thing as being tardy. You go in when you want. You learn what you want. You leave as long as you can pass the test in the course. But I will say that school is very different than real life. If you and I shared an activity for hours a day, I would ask you continuously, are you enjoying that meal? If we went out to dinner, or if we went to a movie, you'd come out of the theater, I'd ask you, did you like the movie? Who asks kids in the course of their day about their experience over the course of the day? We the bell rings, they leave the class.
Probably in the whole 24 hours, no one does. Or in 48 hours, or 72 hours, or the whole month, probably no one does. So that's what's happening. And because things are going so fast, Facebook is fast, Twittering is fast, emailing is fast, schools are fast. You got to go from here to there, and the lessons come at you. You got to read. You got to do your homework. Everything's too rapid, and for kindness and in order to end bullying, we have to slow things down. We have to slow things down.
Poetry helps.
Poetry is the way to slow things down.
Yes.
Art is
it's
the way.
It's a very reflective
yes.
kind of art.
We start noticing things.
Very introspective.
Yes.
Okay, we have another call. This one from Los Angeles, and I want to say it's Jordan. Yes, Jordan, what's your question?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry I missed his name, the man in the glasses said a moment ago, how can a school with thousands of kids prevent bullying?
Yeah, good question. And I hope you have the authoritative answer and can eradicate it here and now forever.
Well, we have to help our schools, and the schools have to help themselves, and the children have to take a part in it too. So the I Promise Joanna project is where I'm asking students to make a promise to end bullying, or to reflect on to talk about their experience being bullied, and to talk about their experience being bullied, and to make a promise not to do it, and to find a way to present this whole thing to the rest of the school. So one group of students from Towngate Elementary told me, we're going to do an end bullying club. So that's one thing the students can do. Come up with ways to do this. I promise, Joanna, I'm not going to be a bully. I want to stop being bullied and find a positive way through this.
Juan, you were talking about this idea of a promise. Because for me, my child says, I promise to clean the room, and by the time they ascend the stairs and see their Xbox, that promise is out the window. So
That's true.
but you're talking about a very different level of promise, and you gave an example.
Oh, the different level of promises, the I Promise Joanna, and to stop bullying
Mexico.
and end bullying. And I was thinking of when we were talking earlier about my mother, Lucha, and my aunt, Aurelia. I used to go with them to Mexico City back in the 50s, late 50s, and they were going to make a promise. They asked, they made a religious request, maybe for someone to, someone wouldn't be so ill. And they had an illness. They go, I'm going to make a promise, and I'm going to go to Mexico City, and I'm going to go on my knees on the town square, the Zócalo, and I want to cross that big town square on my knees all the way to the church, and inside the church, I want to light a candle. And I'm going to do that as a promise so that this person that I know, who's very ill right now, will be healed. So that's kind of a religious Catholic, Mexican Catholic promesa, or manda as it's called, which my mother used to do.
I know my cameraman won't be able to zoom in on this, but I want to show they get a card.
It's a membership card to the I Promise Joanna End Bullying Project, a membership card. So the students, the young people, will be members of the I Promise Joanna End Bullying Project, yes.
There's a dimension to this. I think D, the caller D, hit on this idea. And if it's another caller, I apologize. This idea that you can talk to not only those who are being bullied,
Yes.
but those doing the bullying, and get them to say, yes, I bully, and I won't do it anymore.
That's a very good point, and D made a very good point. Bullying is what we want to end, and if bullying ends, being bullied ends. What we want to do with being bullied is find a way out of it. That's not going to continue the cycle, the process, and the violence. Oh yeah, I'm going to end bullying. I'm going to suck them right back. I'm going to end bullying. I'm going to push that student down the stairs. I'm going to end bullying. I'm going to call her names. Well, that's not ending bullying. That's not ending being bullied. That's creating more violence in the school and in the person. Most of all, you can leave school. You can leave school and be full of bullying still. So we have to cut it at all levels, and that's right. We have to think about the bully, and the bully in us. We have both.
I'm going to throw up some statistics. I'll make these nice and easy, but studies have shown, Duke University has done some, the government has done many, CDC has some statistics. 15% of high schoolers consider suicide. 7% make an attempt in one form or another. Of serious attempts, 1 out of 100 succeed, leading to about 4,400 youth suicides per year. It's a serious issue.
It's a very serious issue, and when you look at that right next to what's happened this year with Boston, this is a whole other thing, of course, but bombs, shootings, and suicides, and bullying, they're all in the same stadium.
It's a reaction to feeling aggrieved through violence.
Yes, it's a terrible reaction. It's a terrible reaction.
When in fact, we need better, more constructive outlets.
Yes, we do. And let us start with ourselves. And, other things are taking place and programs are being initiated. Let's not wait. Let's start right now. Let's start this afternoon. Let's start this evening and say, son, daughter, I was listening to a program today, and it was about bullying. Is this something that you experience or that you go through? Has this happened to you? I think it has. Let's talk about it. And, let's have a piece of cake while we're at it, a little apple pie. And we'll talk, and I'll listen to you. It's okay. Feel free to say, and I won't react. I'm here to listen to you.
Juan, I just want to tell you, if you weren't Poet Laureate, I'd want Governor Brown to appoint you. You express yourself well and you make your point. I know why people would attend your class. Thank you very much for your contributions. And as it happens every time about this part of the show, we run out of time. I hope you'll join me in thanking our guest, Juan Felipe Herrera, for being with us tonight in our studio. You know, Juan is a perfect example of a great contributor to our state, made possible in part by his excellent education. And that's really the story of the Inland Empire. We all know our region is changing. Various ethnicities and ethnic groups are migrating to Southern California. We see it in our schools. We see the change everywhere. So next week, we'll look at educational opportunities available to immigrants new to California to hopefully make them also into great contributors. I'm Roger Bowman. Thank you for watching Plugged Inland.